The Quiet Credential. A little-known free college opportunity available to military and government civilians. OPSEC Minute, Extended, Episode 054. Welcome to our Stuttgart community messaging platform called the OPSEC Minute Extended. On Mondays, we use this space, in posted YouTube videos, to share both a little OPSEC, or Operation Security Wisdom, along with an occasional Marvel team-up bridge that ties into other regulatory security disciplines and policies. Please feel free to like, share with family or friends, or subscribe, and check out the video of this and other OPSEC Minute, extended stories on our YouTube I Secure Narratives channel. Simply click the link and let our stories capture your imagination as they play in the background while you tackle your morning routine and backlog of email. Now, enjoy this week's secure narrative. Prologue. USAG Stuttgart, Germany. Panzer Kaserne, 0207 hours. Rain hammered the slick pavement outside the headquarters building, a relentless drumming that echoed the exhaustion of the late shift. Inside the Directorate of Plans, Training, Mobilization, and Security, DPTMS, the fluorescent lights glowed against the German darkness like an isolated beacon. Jesse Navarro, a 29-year-old newly hired Department of the Army civilian security specialist, sat anchored to his desk. The sterile blue light of his government laptop illuminated his tired features. On one monitor, his clearance paperwork sat open, a labyrinth of bureaucratic necessity. On the second screen, something entirely different held his attention. A course catalog. A free one. A hidden gem of a resource that almost nobody outside the insular security world ever discussed. Jesse rubbed his burning eyes. 6 months ago, I was struggling just to break into this field, he muttered to the empty cubicle. From across the shadowed office, Mr. Alonzo Edwards looked up. At 46, the USAG Stuttgart Command Security Manager was a former Army security professional with a sharp wardrobe and an even sharper mind. Alonzo was the kind of seasoned leader who could walk into a room and instantly discern who had actually read the policy and who was merely bluffing. Alonzo leaned back, his eyes catching the glow of Jesse's second monitor. You know what truly separates people in this community, Navarro? Jesse shrugged, rubbing the back of his neck. Experience? No. Rank? No. Jesse finally turned away from the screen. What then? Alonzo pointed a steady finger toward the course catalog glowing in the dark. The people who invest in themselves long before the opportunity ever arrives. Outside, thunder rolled across the Stuttgart sky, rattling the window panes. Inside, neither man noticed the storm, because neither of them could possibly understand that, within 48 hours, a seemingly routine personnel security issue would detonate into a multi-agency investigation. It would touch upon insider threat indicators, self-reporting requirements, foreign contacts, and cyber awareness. But at the center of it all would be one unlikely factor: education, the kind available for free, the kind that reshaped careers, and, in Jesse's case, the kind that might just save one. Act 1, the opportunity nobody notices. 3 days earlier. The community center at Panzer Kaserne hummed with the chaotic energy of Permanent Change of Station, PCS, season. The room was a cross-section of the garrison, military members in uniform, federal civilians, contractors, and fresh arrivals still fighting jet lag. At the front of the room stood Mr. James J.B. Brooks, USAG Stuttgart's charismatic OPSEC officer. J.B. loved 2 things above all else: security awareness and talking about security awareness, preferably at the same time. Everybody in this room wants a better job, J.B. projected, his voice cutting through the ambient chatter. A few self-conscious laughs bubbled up. Seriously, everybody wants promotions, Everybody wants the leadership positions. Everybody wants the cool, high-stakes assignments. He clicked his presenter remote. A massive logo materialized on the projection screen. CDSE, the Center for Development of Security Excellence. Confusion rippled through the audience. Sitting together in the middle rows, Jesse Navarro exchanged puzzled glances with Jasmine Price, an HR specialist, Marcus Bell from DFMWR, Emily Reeves, a DES dispatcher, and anti-terrorism officers SFC Kaylee Schrader and Luke Fralick. "What's CDSE?" one of them whispered. JB grinned, hearing the murmurs. "Exactly. Most people have never heard of these opportunities until they watch someone else get promoted using them." He clicked the slide again. Bold text appeared. ACE credit. Graduate-level coursework. Post-baccalaureate certificates. Online. Tuition-free for eligible military and government civilians. The collective posture of the room shifted. People leaned forward. "What kind of coursework?" Jesse asked aloud, his curiosity overriding his hesitation. JB listed them off like a maestro conducting an orchestra. Personnel security, information security, risk management, security leadership, industrial security, insider threat. The room went dead silent. Luke leaned toward Kaylee. "Nobody told me this existed when I started out." JB let the silence hang before delivering the hook. "Many of these courses carry ACE credit recommendations." When the audience looked blank, Alonzo Edwards stepped out from the wings of the stage. Translation? Alonzo paused, letting his gaze sweep the room. "College credit." Near the back of the auditorium, Garrison Commander Colonel Edward Sanford watched the crowd's realization dawn, flanked by his senior leaders. They watched carefully because they understood a fundamental truth that younger employees often missed. The future workforce isn't built during a crisis. It is forged in the quiet moments before one. Act T2, the self-reporting problem. 4 weeks later. Jesse was thriving. He had devoured his first CDSE education course, scoring well above an 80%, and was actively charting a pathway toward a certificate. Life felt ordered. Trajectory established. Until his desk phone rang. "Jesse." The voice was clipped, professional, and entirely devoid of warmth. It belonged to Agent Rachel Mercer of Army Counterintelligence. At 38, the former intelligence analyst had a legendary reputation for noticing the microscopic anomalies everyone else overlooked. "We need to talk." Nobody likes hearing those words from counterintelligence. Nobody. 20 minutes later, Jesse found himself swallowed by the claustrophobic silence of a windowless conference room. Mercer closed the heavy door with a decisive click. Beside her sat Agent Nathan Cruz, a dangerously observant 42-year-old who exuded a methodical calm. Mercer didn't offer pleasantries. She opened a manila file and slid a photograph across the table. "Do you know a man named Victor Melnick?" Jesse frowned, his heart kicking up a sudden erratic rhythm. "No." Mercer slid 3 more photographs forward. They were candid shots from a recent local technology symposium, a group picture, a shot by the coffee station, then a picture of Jesse in mid-conversation. Jesse stared, the color draining from his face. "Wait." He pointed a shaking finger at the image. "That guy." Mercer's eyes were like flint. "Yes." Jesse leaned back, the leather chair squeaking loudly in the quiet room. "I met him once. He said he worked in cybersecurity. We talked for maybe 10 minutes about network vulnerabilities." Mercer remained utterly silent. It was the worst kind of investigator silence. The manufactured vacuum designed to force a subject to keep talking to fill the void. Agent Cruz leaned forward, sliding a single sheet of paper into Jesse's line of sight. "Did you self-report that foreign contact?" The room went perfectly, suffocatingly silent. Jesse's stomach plummeted into his shoes. He hadn't. Not because he was hiding a clandestine relationship. Not because he was engaged in espionage. He hadn't reported it because he simply didn't think a 10-minute conversation by a coffee urn mattered. The realization of his immense vulnerability hit him like a freight train. Mercer finally broke the silence, her voice devoid of sympathy. And that, Mr. Navarro, is exactly how people accidentally create catastrophic problems. Act 3, when education becomes survival. The next morning. Jesse sat in Alonzo Edwards' office, looking like a man awaiting a firing squad. "I screwed up," Jesse whispered. Alonzo nodded slowly. "You made a mistake. That's different." Jesse looked up, surprised by the lack of a reprimand. Alonzo leaned back, steepling his fingers. People hear the phrase self-reporting, and they immediately associate it with guilt. They think reporting an interaction means they did something wrong. It doesn't. Alonzo paused, letting the words sink in. Security isn't about perfection, Jesse. It's about transparency. That singular statement stuck in Jesse's mind, because it was the absolute truth. The CI investigation didn't just rattle Jesse, it sent a shockwave across the installation. Not because Jesse was a pariah, but because the incident forced a terrifying realization among the workforce. They knew the policies, but they didn't understand why those policies existed. Discussions sparked everywhere. At DES, leadership reviewed reporting requirements. At DHR, refresher courses were suddenly prioritized. At ES6, cyber reporting responsibilities were scrutinized under a microscope. The distinction between memorizing a regulation and understanding its purpose was vast. That was exactly the gap the CDSE courses were designed to bridge. They taught risk, decision-making, and leadership. And overnight, across USAG Stuttgart, enrollment requests for the free courses exploded. Act 4, the hidden pattern. 2 weeks later. Counterintelligence had cracked the anomaly. Mercer stood before a packed briefing room of senior garrison leadership, a sprawling network diagram projected behind her. The foreign national, Victor Melnick, hadn't been targeting Jesse specifically. He was executing a much broader, more insidious campaign. The adversary was targeting security professionals, specifically the young, the new, and the fiercely ambitious. Mercer traced the nodes on the screen. They are identifying targets through public career aspirations, LinkedIn, professional forums, certification study groups. The room was gravely silent. The pattern was elegant. Foreign collection efforts aren't initiating with demands for classified information, Mercer explained, her voice echoing in the dark room. They are beginning with relationships. They look for people seeking mentorship, people seeking advancement, people seeking credentials. She looked directly at Alonzo. The same ambition that drives our people to improve their careers is the exact vulnerability the adversary is weaponizing. Act 5, the rubber meets the road moment. Friday, 17:30 hours. Patch Barracks. The rain had returned, slicking the cobblestones outside the Patch Barracks chapel. Germany seemed determined to provide a cinematic, brooding backdrop for every pivotal moment in Jesse's life. He stood under the awning beside Colonel David Curlin, the garrison chaplain. "You know why this CI thing shook you so deeply?" Curlin asked, his voice a low rumble over the rain. Jesse sighed, watching the water pool in the street. "Because I thought I was smarter than that." Curlin smiled warmly. "No, that's not it." He looked out toward the gray horizon. "It shook you because you realized for the first time that you are truly responsible." The word landed with heavy, undeniable gravity. Not fear, not the threat of punishment. Responsibility. Responsibility for awareness, for professional growth, for understanding the complex systems designed to keep the nation safe, and, most importantly, the responsibility to help others avoid the same traps. That night, listening to the rain beat against his window, Jesse Navarro opened his laptop and submitted his application package for a CDSE post-baccalaureate certificate track in risk management. He wasn't doing it for a resume bullet anymore. He was doing it because he finally understood that security was a profession, and true professionals never stop learning. Act 6, the return on investment. 6 months later. The transformation across the garrison was impossible to ignore. What had started as a solitary, easily ignored briefing by J.B. Brooks had mutated into a cultural shift. Employees from DPTMS, DES, DHR, the Red Cross and Tenant units were enrolling in droves. Because the courses worked. They were grueling, complex, and deeply useful. Inside the Panzer Kaserne Conference Center, Jesse stood near the back of a standing-room-only crowd. The projection screen read, Stuttgart Professional Development and Security Education. Recognition Ceremony. Colonel Sanford stepped to the podium, the garrison commander's eyes shining with pride. You know what impresses me most about this initiative? It wasn't directed by a general order. It wasn't mandatory. You chose it. The room erupted into deafening applause. When Alonzo Edwards took the stage, he carried a single blank sheet of paper. He held it up to the lights. A resume, Alonzo said deadpan, drawing a wave of laughter from the crowd. I'm serious, Alonzo continued, pointing into the audience. Suppose 2 equally qualified applicants apply for the same vital position. One coasted through the previous year. The other completed multiple ACE-recommended college courses in security, risk management, and operations. Alonzo lowered the paper. Professional education demonstrates initiative. It proves commitment. And most importantly, the recency of your coursework proves to hiring managers that you possess mental flexibility, the ability to learn, adapt, and evolve. In today's workforce, that is pure gold. The ceremony was a triumph. Name after name was called. Jesse accepted his certificate to thunderous cheers, followed by Jasmine, Marcus, and Emily. Each piece of paper represented sacrificed weekends, late-night study sessions, and an unyielding commitment to the mission. After the ceremony, Jesse stood outside beneath a brilliant Stuttgart sunset, a stark, beautiful contrast to the rain that had plagued his earlier days. His phone buzzed in his pocket, an email notification. He opened it, read it, and stopped breathing for a second. Jasmine walked up, noticing his frozen posture. Everything okay? Jesse let out a breathless laugh and handed her the phone. It was an invitation to interview for a highly competitive senior regional position. The hiring official had explicitly cited his recent CDSE certificate pathway and his demonstrated commitment to continuous learning as the deciding factor for the interview. Jasmine beamed. Looks like those late nights paid off. Jesse looked out over the installation. Actually, he smiled, I think all of us are just getting started. The story wasn't ending. A smarter, more resilient workforce had just been born. Epilogue. The real mission. The greatest investment an employee can make is rarely financial. It is educational. The Center for Development of Security Excellence, CDSE, provides eligible military and government civilians access to professional education that directly fortifies both national security and individual career trajectories. Benefit Letter 1. Resume power. ACE-recommended coursework accelerates academic degree progress while signaling to employers that an applicant is mentally flexible, adaptable, and relentlessly engaged. Hiring officials actively seek out those who demonstrate a hunger for new competencies. Benefit Number 2. Professional recognition. Completing a CDSE post-baccalaureate certificate program culminates in a credential signed by the Director of the National Security Agency, DERNSA. It allows graduates to place a devastatingly powerful line on their resumes. Recognized by the Director of the National Security Agency as a subject matter expert in the field of study. For promotion boards and selection panels, this commands absolute attention. Security is not merely about protecting classified data behind vaults and firewalls. It is fundamentally about developing people. A workforce that continually learns is inherently more aware, more adaptable, and more capable of recognizing nuanced risks before they metastasize into disasters. In Stuttgart and across the globe, the strongest, most impenetrable security system is never a badge, a gate, or a software patch. It is an educated workforce, fiercely committed to lifelong learning. Thank you for sticking around as we continue testing the boundaries of an extended storyboard. Think of it as security training with a plot twist, and a fresh way to both educate our team and connect with our military community. Subscribe to our YouTube iSecure Narratives channel. Hit us with a like and watch for our new updates. Also, if you have other suggestions or ideas, or are interested in a personalized name drop, or your work center's inclusion to our tales, don't hold back. Send a quick note to share your thoughts. We're all ears and ready to make things even better.